Hi everyone, my name is Danny, and today we're going to talk about elderberry. So I was able to harvest a whole bunch of elderberry the other day, and I'm really excited because I'm going to be making elderberry syrup today. So I first wanted to talk a little bit about elderberry. Elderberry in my area are ripe around the end of August, and I don't have any on my property, so I just kind of look around the trails and woods where I harvest mushrooms typically. Let me show you. Elderberry is really good to have on hand for the winter, any months where you feel like you're more susceptible to illness. So elderberry is a really good support for your immune system, and elderberry is known to, and there are a lot of studies on this, shorten your cold and flu symptoms, specifically a big handful of influenza strains. So it's a pretty powerful berry and definitely something I want to have on hand for the winter. So I'm going to keep the syrup, some of it in my fridge, some of it in my freezer, and just take it every few days when I think of it, just maybe a spoonful or two, or you can even add it to desserts or pancakes or whatever. Use it as a syrup. It's really delicious. It can be a little bit harsh on your stomach, so I wouldn't just take it straight without having anything else on my stomach or mixing it into something else. That is one of the biggest side effects that people who take elderberry do mention. So just keep that in mind. But another thing that will help with that is making sure that you're harvesting fully ripe berries. That is important because they're more toxic the less ripe they are. So this is what it looks like when it's ripe. You can see the berries are basically black. Sometimes I harvest them when they're like a deep red to purple, and then I'll let them sit for a day or two. I did read that they're not supposed to ripen further once you cut them off, but in my experience, they do ripen a little bit more if you let them sit. So I don't let them sit too long so they rot or anything. You can see that the branches that hold the berries are, you can't really see it so much in this light, but they look a little more pink. In person, it's like a deep purple color to red. So that's one way you can help identify elderberry plants. Really the only concerning lookalike that I would talk about is spotted water hemlock. However, they don't really make berries. So I guess you could say that the flower umbels kind of resemble elderberry a little bit in the way that they branch out like this and produce berries. And when they flower, when elderberry flowers, it's white. So the flowers are white. So I guess at that time in the season, you could mistake elderberry for spotted water hemlock, or really any species of water hemlock, which are extremely poisonous and deadly, by the way. So I think my first video on this YouTube channel is all about spotted water hemlock. You can go check that out. And like I said, it was my first YouTube video, so I apologize for kind of the awkwardness and weirdness. I was experimenting with my voice a lot, and it's a little embarrassing, but there's some good information there. Anyways, let's get to making some elderberry syrup. It's really very simple. It just takes a little bit of time because you are not supposed to eat these uncooked. So they do need to be on a low rolling boil for about 20 to 30 minutes in order to kind of cook out some of the toxins. Otherwise, it'll probably be even more harsh on your stomach. So keep that in mind as well. Another quick thing to note is that elderberries are high in vitamin C. So there's that too. Okay, all you're really gonna need for the syrup is some water, honey, a big pot, and first I need to destem the berries. So let's do that now. So I'm wearing gloves because These berries really stain any surface that the juice gets on, including your hands. To get the berries off, I'm just taking the branches and lightly pulling at the berries. Not much of a science to it. I'm just keeping aware of any unripe berries that I see, and I don't pull those off and put them into the pot. So I'm not going to make you sit here this whole time. It is a tedious process, not hard, but tedious. And let's speed through this, all right? Okay, so I thought I'd give you a different view, and I apologize if you can hear my pugs are snoring in the background. You just want to lightly pull and kind of roll your fingers so as to not get too many branches off in with the berries. And if that does happen, even though some of the little pieces, I'm not too worried. I'll pick out the big ones that I can, and then when I put everything on the stove, I'm still not concerned, because after we cook the berries for 20 to 30 minutes on a rolling boil, I'm gonna strain the juice. So we have to separate the juice from all of the little berry skins. So you can see how bright purple the juice is. It's gorgeous, but we don't want the skins in there. So we'll be filtering all of that out anyways. So even if there's a little bit of like debris or little branch pieces, it's not a concern really. Okay, again, sorry because my pugs are snoring really loud, but yep, that's my hand. So I've kind of dug through and picked out as many as the little unripe, oh, here's a few, unripe green berries that I can. If there's one or two, it's not gonna super hurt anybody, but tried to get all the little branches out that I could. And like I said, if there are a few of them left in here, that's totally fine, because we're going to be straining all of this once we're done cooking it anyways. So I'm going to add water. And it's supposed to be approximately, if you have about 3 cups of berries, which I think I do, 1 cup of water. I eyeball it, to be honest. That's a little bit more than 1 cup, but that's fine. We're gonna cook it down anyways. So I'm gonna turn it on medium to get started, and we'll turn it down once it's at a little bit of a rolling boil. We don't want to overcook this, but we do want it at a low rolling boil for about 20 to 30 minutes. So that way it's a little bit easier on our tummies. It's a bit toxic if you don't cook it well. So we're gonna do that and cook some of the water out, and as soon as this warms up, I'm gonna start mashing it a bit to get all the juice out of the berries. So I forgot to mention, it is a good time when it's nice and cool to add your sweetener. I'm gonna use some honey. You can use sugar, whatever sweetener you prefer, and your syrups. And I'm running a bit low on honey, so I probably will need to add some sugar. I'll probably do maybe a cup to maybe a half a cup. All right, adding in a cup of sugar. I typically don't add as much sugar as some recipes call for, but I do want enough to make it palatable. All right, so I'm just mixing in the sugar, and I'm just waiting for this to heat up. I do want to get out this last bit of honey. So now I'm going to show you what I use to mash the berries, and it's nothing fancy. So I am actually using a stainless steel water bottle because it was really easy to wash off. There's a sheen, like a kind of yellowy gold sheen that these berries leave on your tools, and it's really sticky and hard to get off. So it was somewhat easy to clean this off after pressing the berries, so I'm going to use it again. It's got a nice flat bottom. A fork just wasn't cutting it. Starting to warm up a little bit, and there's a lot of berries in here, so I'm going to get started mashing up these berries. So I just kind of push this down. Really anything flat you have to use, or even if you just have a fork, that'll be fine too. I just push them to the bottom and roll it around. Every probably 30 seconds or so I'll have to scrape the bottom off because the berries will build up at the bottom. And of course my neighbor wants to mow his lawn now. So in case you're not so much like me and you like to go by a specific recipe rather than I'll add a little bit of sugar and then taste test, if you want to be more specific than that, the syrup recipes I've used for berries in the past, or even just to make preserves, typically suggested an equal amount sugar to berries ratio. That's just a little too much for us. It's not necessary. I think that specific berries, including elderberry, give so much of a really good flavor that I really don't need to mask it with a ton of sugar. And in my diet I have to have low sugar, so I never put that much. You can if you want. It's all based on your taste, or if you'd like to go off of a specific recipe that you find online, that's fine too. Whatever you prefer. I do suggest adding some sort of sweetener, however. So another reason we want to strain the juice out of the berries is because now that I'm smashing all of these, I see all these little seeds floating around, and we don't want those in our syrup. So if you're tempted to just make preserves or something like that, just know it's best to get rid of the skins and the seeds for your stomach's sake, but also I'm sure it's not a lovely experience to just chew on these seeds. They're a little larger than raspberry seeds, it looks like. They just don't look like they'd be a good time to consume. So make sure to strain your elderberry syrup once it's done cooking. All right, I think I'm gonna be done smashing for now. My arm and hand need a break, and even if all of the berries aren't completely crushed, which is almost impossible to do, once I strain these out, I can really push with a fork or a spoon and pop all the rest of them and get the juice out. So not a big deal. So this is that residue I was talking about that elderberries leave. So I just washed this and tried to scrape off as much as possible, but there's still this like yellowish, sticky, it almost is like sap. The stainless steel was perfectly clean before. So yeah, it definitely leaves a residue on your tools. All right, we got a little bit of a boil going here. I'm gonna keep stirring now so I don't burn any of the sugar. And I turn the heat down a little bit. I wanna put it to like, I don't know, low medium. This is looking so good. All right, so it's been about 30 minutes that this has been on a slight boil. I'm gonna turn it off and let this cool to where it's about lukewarm maybe, or even cooler is fine. And I'll start straining it out. You guys were snoring the whole time I was trying to record. I can't be mad, you're too cute. Charlie, say hi. Oh, Russell, he's all excited to be on camera too. He came running over. Okay, now go back to your nap. Yep, you're a good boy. You're such a good boy, I know. Spooky, what was that? What was that? Yeah, it's okay. I know you want all the attention. Okay, I'm back and I've let the berries cool a bit and I washed my hands again. They're looking really good. Look at how bright that is. It's gorgeous. So now we're gonna strain all the berry skins and seeds out, and I have a strainer and I have a fork and a pouring bowl, which fits my strainer just perfectly. So what I'm gonna do is strain probably about half of it, and then I'm gonna press as hard as I can to pop the rest of those berries and get all the juice out and make sure I get as much as I can, and then probably toss that kind of pulp out and then do it again so I can fit everything in this smaller strainer that I have. So let's do that. I'm gonna pour some in, about half of it. Yeah, there we go. I can't get over that color. Absolutely gorgeous. I bet you could make a really beautiful dye with that. So I'm going to squish and scrape really to try to pop open all the berries that I wasn't able to open when I was pushing down with the water bottle. Now my dogs are really snoring, sorry. Almost done. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but there are some little bits of seeds that came through the strainer, so I'm gonna strain it probably 2 more times through. So I'm gonna strain it into here. Okay, and then I'm gonna strain it 1 more time. There's still some tiny little seed bits, which isn't a big deal, but I do wanna get out as much debris as possible. All right. Tastes amazing. I don't want that red getting on my counter though. Okay, so that's how much more was still strained. Pretty amazing. Wow, look at that deep color. Okay, so I'm gonna get some jars prepared and we'll start pouring this in. This is the fun part. I also looks like I have to wipe out my counter. All right, here we go. Definitely making a mess. It's all right, I can clean it up. Guess I didn't really need, I don't have enough left for one of these bigger jars, so I'm gonna put this in a smaller jar in a few minutes. Yay! All done. I love giving away either berry preserves or jams or syrup. It's just a good little additive to a big gift, or it's just a little, hi, nice to see you. Here's something I made. I don't know, I love giving stuff away. I don't really sell anything I make except for maybe some of my mushroom jewelry, but I really just like giving stuff away. So this is a jar I already had in my fridge from some elderberry syrup I made last week. I really love this jar, and I like to pick up little clean jars that I find at thrift shops, and I clean them out really well, and I use those to fill and give away my homemade goods as gifts. And my elderberry syrup is done. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did. I hope it was a little bit of a relaxing, longer video for you. I can't wait to start using this probably about every day to every other day, maybe a spoonful or so to help support my immune system. And if I do get ill this fall or winter, I'll use it probably a little bit more often to make sure that my symptoms don't last as long as they typically would. So please join me on my next video. I plan to be posting a little bit more regularly now that the weather isn't so crazy and hot. It's been kind of a tough summer to want to whip out my camera when I'm just dripping sweat and getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. It's been a little bit more tough So I do have some more videos planned for this fall, and fall for me is the season of making things homemade. A lot more to come, and still some more foraging yet for this year. I'll see you guys soon. Bye. I'm Danny, and today we're talking about elderberry. Wow. I can't talk to her. Speak words, Danny. Okay. So they do need to be on a low royal.